What if I told you that Ferrari discovered something in Hamilton's car that not even Lewis knew that it existed? A secret modification that completely changed the way it must pilot? Stay, because this story is deeper than a simple technical adjustment. It is a silent revolution within Maranello. After the Italy Grand Prix, the atmosphere inside Ferrari changed suddenly, not for a scandalous result on the track, but for what was discovered in the hidden archives of Lewis Hamilton's car. The posterior technical analysis revealed details that no member of the team, not even Chief Frédéric Vasseur, had anticipated. It all started when engineers reviewed the telemetry of the SF-25 as part of the usual evaluation protocol after each race. The data showed a completely atypical pattern. The longitudinal stability of the car was absolute, something that simply had not been seen in any other SF-25 until that moment. The data curves were clean, soft, without irregularities, and most importantly, without the violent spikes of instability that had been characteristic since the beginning of the season. This type of stability is extremely difficult to achieve in a modern Formula One car, especially under conditions of high aerodynamic load and high-speed circuits such as Monza. But in Hamilton's car, it was almost perfect. More revealing was the car's behavior during the transition phases between braking and curve entrance. This is where a car really demonstrates its balance. The SF-25, which had been criticized for its tendency to fly over and punish rear tires, seemed to have overcome one of its greatest defects overnight. The transition was fluid, controlled, almost surgical, and the wear of the rear rubber had been significantly reduced. In a season where the thermal management of the tires is a constant battle, this only was already worth gold. When deepening the analysis, the engineers detected the source of this transformation: modifications in the rear conduction height and adjustments in the differential preload. But the most disturbing thing was not what, but who. These modifications had not been authorized by Vasseur or by Hamilton's direct career engineers. They were implemented autonomously by an internal unit within the Ferrari team, known as the Central Performance Group. This technical division, formed by simulation experts, vehicle dynamics and experimental development, had been created to explore new limits in car settings. However, his speech had been discreet, almost clandestine, operating outside the traditional engineering decisions. When Vasseur was informed of these findings, his reaction was of disbelief. It was not simply a matter of failed internal communication, but an alert about the control that I really had about the technical process within the team. He was facing a discovery that evidenced that a parallel structure within his own organization had found the way to competitiveness before official engineering. The fact that these improvements have been discovered almost accidentally is a blow to the traditional hierarchy of work within Ferrari. What Vasseur understood at that time was that the greatest technical advance of the team so far this year had not emerged from a planned process, but from a marginal and experimental initiative. And the most disturbing thing was that it had worked better than expected. This revelation forced to rethink from scratch not only the way in which Ferrari configures its cars, but also the way in which the technical power is distributed within the team. To what extent should technical autonomy be allowed within a team as hierarchical as Ferrari? And if this decentralization, instead of being a risk, was the key to unlocking the entire potential of the SF-25? Vasseur now had more questions than answers, and with the Azerbaijan Grand Prix on the horizon, I knew that any decision could define the rest of the season. Lewis Hamilton has not only been one of the most successful pilots in the history of Formula One, he has also been a staunch defender of his driving style. His technique, based on fluidity, anticipation, and exquisite domain of weight control, allowed him to dominate the hybrid era and adapt to virtually any car quickly. But in 2025, when he arrived in Ferrari, that same style became a disadvantage. The SF-25 did not respond as its previous cars. It was an unpredictable car, difficult to balance in slow curves, with a volatile rear train that compromised both the traction and the durability of the tires. In that context, Hamilton was forced to do the unthinkable, to reinvent himself as a pilot. Hamilton's evolution is not simply a technical adaptation story. It is a lesson about resilience, how even the best can find new ways of growing. What he has done in Ferrari is not simply to compete, it is to rebuild piece by piece, within an environment that has historically devoured champions. And the most impressive of all is that it is working. The classification times begin to approach those of Leclerc, their rhythm in the race is more constant, and the trust that transmits behind the wheel is growing. But the most dangerous thing for its rivals is that this new Hamilton is still far from its roof. Each race is a lesson, each stint an opportunity to adjust and refine. And if you manage to complete this transformation process before the European summer, Ferrari could have not only a competitive car in your hands, but also a more versatile, more complete and more dangerous Hamilton than ever. The discovery made in Lewis Hamilton's car not only represents a specific improvement in its performance. What Ferrari has found, almost by accident, is a new technical direction that radically changes its development paradigm, not only by 2025, but for its entire future operational model. Until now, the Scuderia had operated under a rigid hierarchical structure, where technical decisions had to go through multiple filters before applying on the track. But the unexpected success of the Central Performance Group and Autonomous Experimental Engineering Cell has questioned all that organizational architecture. For Frédéric Vasseur, this means facing an uncomfortable dilemma. Should this technical unit act with greater freedom, even if that implies breaking with decades of internal culture in Maranello? Or should centralized control reinforce to prevent these decisions from being made without direct supervision, even if that slows potential innovations? The truth is that the result obtained with Hamilton's SF25 cannot be ignored. It is not just a marginal improvement, but a complete transformation in the behavior of the car that has also been validated on the track under conditions of high demand such as Monza and Shanghai. The most significant thing for Ferrari is that, for the first time, it has clear data that certain specific adjustments such as the modification of the rear conduction height and the preload of the differential can unlock hidden yields of the car. These parameters, often overlooked in the search for aerodynamic efficiency or general stability, have proven key to adapt the car to different piloting styles. And this opens a new strategic front for the team, the possibility of customizing the SF25 not only for the circuit, but for each pilot. In other words, turn the car into an adaptable platform, instead of a unique force solution for both sides of the garage. This finding has also highlighted the differences in focus between Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. While Leclerc has continued to seek solutions from aerodynamic balance and lateral load, Hamilton has exploited the mechanical dimension and the braking response. Ferrari now meets a duality that could play in his favor. Two divergent development paths that can offer different responses depending on the circuit and conditions. But to capitalize on this advantage, the team needs to redefine its technical approach, allowing greater flexibility in decision-making and accepting that absolute control could be limiting its true potential. In addition, this situation forces Ferrari to review his pilot-engineer feedback philosophy. If Hamilton could adapt so quickly to a modified car without being informed of the changes, that also indicates that there is a disconnection between what engineers do and what the pilots feel. It is not a failure, but an opportunity. Create more fluid communication systems, where technical decisions are not only informed, but understood and validated by those who are on the track. Revelation also has important implications for long-term planning. Ferrari is evaluating how to integrate this technical cell into the official flow of car development. This would imply a restructuring of the organization chart, but also a redefinition of the processes of proof, validation, and application of improvements. It could even mean that future evolutions of the car do not come from the Maranello factory, but from satellite units that operate with greater agility and less bureaucracy. A radical change for a team that has historically been characterized by its centralized control. There is a deep human component that deserves to be underlined. Hamilton has shown that even after 7 world titles, humility continues to question, courage to change, and discipline to rebuild from the foundations. This level of transformation in a sport as specialized as Formula One is extremely rare. And yet, that is just what keeps it competitive, which allows him not only to resist the passage of time, but to challenge him. For Ferrari, this represents a golden opportunity. They have in their hands not only a car with a margin of improvement, but to a pilot who has proven willing to go beyond what is expected, to cross discomfort areas if that means unlocking performance. But to take advantage of this opportunity, the Scuderia must make bold decisions. You will have to redefine your technical culture, open to new internal structures, and accept that great advances do not always come from the path drawn. Sometimes the competitive advantage is born from chaos, the unexpected, of what breaks the rules without asking permission. And this is where you, as a spectator and fan, come into play. What do you think of all this? Are we seeing Hamilton's last great transformation before closing his career, or the birth of an even more dangerous stage for his rivals? Should Ferrari institutionalize the work of the Central Performance Group and give them more power, even if that implies breaking with their hierarchical tradition? Or are we facing a technical mirage that will not be sustainable in the long term? Leave me your thoughts in the comments.